Somatic psychology, I have been asked many times to explain what that is. And as our field grows in its inclusion of the awareness of the body and the emotional life of our clients, which is an awesome thing to see that that's happening, there still is some confusion about what that actually means in terms of how that can show up in a session. And how it separates those of us who do somatic work or have that training from the more general clinical training that people receive in this country. So I want to talk a little bit about it, just some quick points to make to see if I can help people understand. So somatic psychology begins with the premise that the body is part of our emotional life, a very integral part of it, that we use ourselves physically, whether we're tightening or, clenching or feeling soft and open in our bodies or holding our postures a certain way in service of our emotional life in some way. So perhaps we are in service of repressing certain feelings. Perhaps we are using our body in service of expression of our feelings, but that the body is linked inextricably to our feeling states and our emotional life. That the body is a present and alive vessel where emotional life can get stuck, where we do certain things relative to our anger or our sadness or excitement or joy that assists in expression of those feelings or repression of them. That there are very specific things that we each do that occur in our bodies and in the ways we use our bodies when we have certain felt experiences. Okay, so that's the bottom line premise of somatic psychology. So what that looks like is, let's say you're a child in a family. Let's say we'll pick a 2-year-old, Jenna, and she is raised in a family where her expression of big feelings, like children can have and mostly do, is met with admonition or criticism, or maybe even a backhand, or being sent to her room, some sort of rejection around when she has a feeling expression and it comes out and she cries, let's say, she gets this kind of reaction, right? Repeatedly. Those feeling impulses come up in her body. Here they are. They come out as tears or as some sort of expression, and she gets admonished in some way for that expression. So now what's going to start happening for little Jenna is she'll have these impulses in her body, right? Felt sense experiences of something happening. And she will remember, I can't show that here. I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to get hit. I'm going to get rejected or criticized or made fun of or whatever it is. So now those impulses, where they used to be met with flow and expression, are now showing up in her body and in her being, and she stops them from getting expressed. So the how of her stopping them is the work of somatic psychology. How does she repress those feelings? Does she set her jaw when she feels these impulses coming up and these sensations in her body? Does she clench her gut? Does she squeeze her eyes? Does she clench her jaw? Does she pull up in her pelvic floor? Like, how is it that this little Jenna, who is learning from her environment, the people around her, don't express those things? How does she shut those down? And that happens on a body level. And so now she has these felt sense experiences, and she shuts them down through clenching in various ways, whatever those are for her. So she continues to grow up in this family, not showing these experiences. Eventually what's going to happen is this activity in her body, these impulses toward feeling states, will be in her awareness less and less. Her clenching right, which usually was being used to meet those experiences, will now clench around them so frequently that she won't feel those things so much anymore. Maybe her joy is something she would express with excitement and noise and big movement, and she'd get in trouble for that, or her anger or her sadness or whatever it is. So now she becomes a person who doesn't even feel those things anymore, right? She shut them down for so long and replaced those beautiful, alive, vital expressions and experiences with this holding, which Wilhelm Reich called armoring. That the musculature, we do something in our body, squeezing in, tightening up, setting the jaw. We create armoring in our musculature to control these experiences around which we have been criticized or not accepted in some way or rejected, right? So now you have this person who's been doing this for 10, 15, 20, 25, 40, 50 years, who is depressed or has other kinds of maybe medical conditions because of the chronic armoring, the chronic clenching. And they don't actually have much of a sense of feeling states, right? Maybe they haven't cried for 25 years or 30 years, or I never get angry, or, there's maybe a flatness to them. It could show up in a variety of ways. That's one example of how someone might sort of be living who has had to clench around certain feelings. Or maybe their joy is accepted. Maybe their family sort of keeps everything elevated. And if it's a happy feeling, we want to hear about it. If it's a good thing, let's all talk about it and be joyous together. But if there's sadness or grief, or rage or anger, frustration, those things aren't allowed to be felt. Or maybe it's a family where anger is allowed. There's a lot of explosive anger. But if you go to the softer feelings of sadness, grief, disappointment, there's no room for that. So our history and how the kind of environment we're raised in sets us up for having a certain kind of access to our emotional life and expression of that life. So when a person comes into the therapy office of a somatic psychotherapist, what that means is, one, there's that awareness that I spoke of at the beginning, that there is a link, how people use their bodies, their posture, their musculature is related to their emotional life. So it could be as simple as when someone's talking about their experience, a somatic psychotherapist might say something like, I notice when you talk about XYZ experience, I notice that you tighten your jaw or that you set your jaw a little bit. Or did you notice that? Are you aware of that? And people might be like, no, I don't know, and I've never noticed. Can you feel that right now? Yeah, I kind of can. Just let yourself clench and kind of feel that clenching. What is that like? So it's about bringing awareness to what it is that we all habitually do in our day-to-day life that we might not be aware of. So part of the work of a somatic psychotherapist is to elevate one's awareness through what we call direct experience. So I might reflect that to someone. Do you notice that? How does that feel to just feel that clenching? What's that like for you, right? So one of the things that we don't do in this work is name the experience for someone. So, tightness in the chest means this. No, we let people have a direct experience of the holding in their chest and talk about what their subjective experience of that is. What do you notice? Is it a small part of your chest? Does it sort of stretch across your chest? Is your back involved? What does that feel like to you? What if we just sit here and you kind of notice? How does that affect your breathing, or does it, right? So we get interested and curious about how people are using their bodies relative to the experiences of their lives. And we explore history and what that was like in the family of origin and where they came up. So this is sort of a little bit of a thread of somatic awareness, and mindfulness is a huge piece of that, because in order to be able to feel these things, to sense in, to feel the clenched fist, the pulling up in the pelvic floor, the hardness in the eyes and the muscles around the eyes, or clenched jaw, whatever it is, we have to be present to ourselves. And so it's very personal work when we talk about people and the way that we're using our bodies. So a well-trained somatic clinician will have that sensitivity to talk about these things in such a way and in a certain timing that we don't scare anybody away by going toward the body or say something too big for someone who has no awareness of their body, really. So there's some skill in how to bring this into the work. But for a somatic psychotherapist, that is, if I could say there's a goal, it would be to bring people into their own aliveness, into their own awareness of how they live in their body, because it's such a personal place and this is our home, right? And so we want people to feel access to their vitality, to the ways they use their body, to learn new ways to use their body relative to their emotional life, so that there is more access to feeling states. So that's kind of what we're working with. So I hope that just brief kind of synopsis of the work gives you some sense of the importance of somatic psychology and bridging that gap between thoughts and mental processes and emotions and the body. That the work is very grounded in physiology and personal, subjective, direct experience. It's beautiful work. It's how we come alive again, right? So I appreciate the learning I've had toward this, and I love offering it. So that's a little bit about it. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll be happy to have discussions about this subject that's very near and dear to my heart. Okay, take care.